Okay, let me start. Good morning again. My name is Linda Stusbartová. I am responsible for Science, Research and Innovation section at the Czech-Israeli Chamber of Commerce, and it's an honor for me to lead the following panel. I would like to address Your Excellency and also distinguished representatives of Israeli government and leading institutions. Shalom vebaruchim habayim vetoda rabba. Also regards to my Czech colleagues and representatives of Czech leading government and scientific institutions. This panel will be discussing smart city solutions and technologies. And I am very looking forward to have 5 very diverse contributions: data and planning, visions, safety, testbed and best practices, and walkability, and of course, gender perspective. Without further much ado, let me ask Professor Lenski, the first speaker, to come and give us his view. Professor Lenski is head of remote sensing and GIS lab at Bar-Ilan University. Bar-Ilan University being the second leading academic institution in Israel. From his academic background expertise, it's also Hebrew University Jerusalem and also Tokyo University. And his expertise ranges from microphysics, agriculture, Dead Sea studies, epidemiology, satellite data, and much more. Professor Lenski, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This one here? Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me and for the tremendous operation of the Czech and Israeli inviters. Okay, so I'll talk about a vertical greenery system effect on the urban environment, and then some thought about a contribution to urban planning and especially climate change. This study has a lot of contributors, and I have to run, so I won't say a word on everyone. So this is how it looks, our system, a vertical green system in Bar-Ilan University. Our research goals were to assess the effects of the vertical green system on the environment, and the other way, the environment on these systems. The effects on human health and well-being, and economic effects, which Anat will talk later today. And then finally, we would like to integrate all this in urban planning, the concepts at least. Okay, so I'll show briefly a well-known problem of the urban heat islands. As you can see, along the coast, the Israeli cities are all suffering from these heat islands, and we are focusing on the center of Israel and the area of the project, which is nicely in the middle of this urban heat island. So this is Bar-Ilan University campus. It's just next to road number 4, high traffic, pollution and everything. And on the west, we have 2 cities, Bnei Brak and Ramat Gan, and to the east, Givat Shmuel and Kiryat Ono. And the project consists of these 3 buildings, 211, 12, and 13, with 2 green facades between these buildings. It looks like this. We have 2 technologies, vertical forest and green walls. And except for the green canyon, we have another gray canyon, which is used as a control. And we have sensors, environmental sensors for air temperature and relative humidity, and wind speed and direction. It is in the middle of these canyons. Wall temperature, radiation, air quality, and also we have indoor measurements of air temperature, temperature of the wall temperature and heat fluxes. And now I will go to the results. Okay, so the first, our first goal to understand effects on the environment. So here we see measurements, 1.5 years of measurements. In red, it's the temperature, blue, relative humidity, and the bottom panel shows the difference between the air temperature in the middle of the two canyons, where green is when the green canyon is warmer, and black when we have a cooling effect. The control is warmer. So we had a few weeks of background measurements with the mean temperature of the green canyon has mean temperature higher by about 1/4 degrees than the control. And we can see that the main cooling effects is in the spring and summertime, and very nice cooling in the heat waves. So if we want to show it quantitatively, we see three plots here. One, the effect in the center of the canyon, one in the south-facing wall, which they are exposed to a lot of solar radiation, and another one from the north-facing radiation, north-facing walls. In any case, we see that as the temperature rises, the cooling effect is much better, which is very nice for as a good effect for these greening systems. If we look at, along the day, also we see that in the heat waves, we have cooling almost all along the day, except for a short period in the afternoon. In the summertime, we have also nice cooling effects. And if we look indoor, and this has implication to energy consumption, we see that the lines here represents the difference between the air temperature, the indoor air temperature and the air temperature outside. It's about 1 meter distance from the greenery. So we can see that there is a nice cooling effect in the summer and some warming effect in the winter, which is very nice. This is in the north-facing walls. This is the green line with respect to the black one. And if we go to the south-facing wall, where we have much more radiation, we still have a very nice cooling effect in the summer, but in the winter, we lost the warming effect, which is because of the shading of the vegetation on the wall. So we pay a little price in the winter, but the bottom line of this plot is that we save the energy saving from this effect is about half of the price of the maintenance of the green walls. Anat will talk about this in her talk. And now I'll jump to the integration into urban planning. We are talking not only integrating these kind of green infrastructure, but generally how to do this. So there were, there's another one before, the effects of the environment on the green walls. So we are looking here at time series of an event where some of the green wall on the north-facing green walls, it became yellow. So we are looking here with a hyperspectral camera, the two columns on the left, and with a thermal camera, this is the column on the right. And here we first see this yellowing, it is becoming larger and even larger, and with the vegetation index that we are showing here, we can see, of course, the effect on the vegetation. But the nice thing is that you can see the shape, the area that is going to be affected about 3 weeks in advance, which is very important for management of this kind of infrastructure. And finally, if we look at the thermal camera, we can see also the reasons for this for the damage for the vegetation. In this case, the black shades here are showing that the vegetation was cooler than the surrounding, which means that it suffered from too much watering. So we can see that with these technologies, we can help reduce probably maintenance costs. And our second motivation was to see the effects on health. There was physiological and psychological effects. I will show here only some of them. We see here there were 200 people took part in this experiment, and they had to answer different questionnaires, and their physiological, some physiological properties were also measured, and they were exposed to 4 types of environment: one indoor, 2 green environments, the green walls in a park, and the other one gray walls. And what we see that, for example, attention was highest near the green walls, and also body image was higher near in the green infrastructure and in the green walls with respect to the gray walls and indoor. Also, regarding positive feelings were higher near the green wall, and negative feelings were lower near the green walls. So we had a very nice effect. People are happier near this kind of infrastructure. As I mentioned, the economic sides, Anat will talk, and now I'll say I have 2 more minutes to talk about how to integrate this into urban planning. So as was mentioned before, a strategic plan is very important. I was very impressed yesterday what we saw in Prague municipality, and they're doing at least the first stage very nicely. Anyway, there are constraints and opportunities. And in Israeli cities, there's a need for accelerated development. And I think in every city, each neighborhood has different characteristics and needs, and the stakeholders may have very different interests. So how to manage with all these kind of constraints? So what we suggest is deep, participatory, and information-based planning. And 2 stages. First, it should be sensitive to the different needs of the neighborhoods. And the second, the actual planning of the future should involve all stakeholders. And what we also suggest, that the impact of the planning on the environment, health, and economy should be assessed, and the stakeholders should understand what the planning scenarios that are suggested, what they mean in terms of these issues. So in the first, sensitive to the different needs, we can use satellite and also other demographic and other data for setting the goals. And it could be the municipality with the stakeholders, with or without the presence of the university. And for the second part, planning the future of a neighborhood, we chose to use a planning support system which is called Geodesign Hub. It has excellent stakeholder involvement capacities. And here's very shortly one example from Tel Aviv. There was this kind of session. The municipalities, they discussed 10 systems. You have the color codes here and the goals and planning that the municipality suggested. And then the stakeholders were divided to 4 groups, which is environment, community, government, etc. And each set their own priorities, and according to the priorities, their own plan, their own scenario. They were then divided to 2 groups. Each 2 original groups gave one suggested scenario, and finally they agreed on one alternative. And I'll finish with this. What is missing in this, I think, very good process, what is missing is the assessments on environment, health, economy. And we think that if the people who are sitting together and planning the future for the place would know this kind of information, probably some of the suggestion would change according to this additional information. And I want to thank you again for listening and for inviting me. Yeah.
And thank you very much for being time-wise careful. So far, we do not have a question, so let's move to the next contribution by architect Michal Postránecký. He divides his time between Prague and Sarasota, Florida. He is a visionary urbanist, architecture and designer, and a great friend of mine. Before he starts his presentation, I invite you to close your eyes and to imagine how cities in 2050 will look like. We have seen some images, but what's your perception? And ask yourself, will there be flying objects around us, drones, or will it be rather walking objects on the streets? So let's listen to what Michal has to say. He's also head of Center of the City of the Future at the Czech Institute of Informatics, Robotics, and Cybernetics. Michal, I'm looking forward.
Thank you very much. Hello? Yeah, thank you very much for a nice introduction. So I'll try to fit all my slides in a couple of minutes that we have in front of us. I'm going to touch the future as a Professor Pasik did, and then I liked your presentation. So do I know how cities in 2050 looks? I don't. I'm not really sure, but I will touch some prerequisite of that future. I believe they are pretty evident. So as you said, as was already said, I am head of CCF at CTU, and we are looking at rethinking cities through a couple areas. And through the optics of 4 main domains: society, economy, technology, and environment. But we are not the first one who is doing that, so we are learning from the past. So there was already fear if we really survived year 2000 and behind that. And you can see they also brought solutions which are really very close to our proposals. They already had an answer for, COVID situation from home office. But those pictures are 40, 50 years old. This is even 70 years old picture, and it is talking about smart house. I like to show it as a smart house. So we are using also the word smartification, trying to put smart in front of every other word, just because it has a technology. I am showing this picture because I like to say this was the first smart lighting pole in the world. It was in China because they are always ahead. But also there's you can see a smart automatization of the process and then communication tools on that smart pole. So we also, this is from Russian magazine Technika Mladoži from 1949. And what is interesting, I call it, it's one of the first urban mobility example. Unfortunately, you can see also that there's that militant idea which didn't disappear, and we can see the result of today in Ukraine. So how really will look the future in 2050? is it possible that we will be looking at the future in that time through some kind of augmented reality, displayed in invisible lenses in our eyes? I hope not. But we definitely, right now, are enjoying the big shift in society paradigm because AI and all that digital intelligence. We have to find many answers for that future. That AI is a disruptive shift in that evolution of the human race. So the first, let's find out what the city is, what was the city evolution. Many people may tell you it's a living organism. It's not. It is really not a living organism. It may behave from the distance as a living organism, but it's just normal shell, physical shell. And without society, which build it, it's nothing. So cities really can grow, they can stagnate, but they can also disappear because there is no society or just there's no action. So they are based really on needs, on actions, transactions, relations between society, and they are demanding more and more that physical shell for those activities, and shell is starting to be more and more complicated, and sometimes it looks like this. We are also, related to nature, and sometimes we have to, take into account the situation, and like, for example, natural disasters. And this is already made by humans, so we are a very creative species, but we can do this. So we also have to, we are maybe the biggest danger to us, to ourselves. We did this, we did also this. And unfortunately, we think that democracy is also this. This is also a very big danger, and we have to create a resilience also against this. Last 2 years, we were fighting with invisible enemy, something we don't see, we didn't expect. We are fighting some small virus, but we are also fighting this. And this is maybe it's maybe more danger than the virus, which we can control. You cannot control this easily. So, and we also, we are losing species biodiversity. It was already told by Professor Pasik. You touched it a little bit, but this is extremely dangerous. And this is very big thing. And we are finding that now. So we are pushed to be globalized, the global, world and society, but now we are, fortificated in the time of fortification of the globalization. This is one of the really big things. Human biodiversity was a rule of a human revolution, and we are trying to globalize it. We were trying to globalize again and mix it. So we are very good in some resilient methodics and strategies, but look at this. To meet the goals of building a resilient city, we will need to commit significant resources on the local level. To do so in the economic challenges we are now, and in the face of scarcity of resources, will not be easy, but we have no option, we will have to do it. And it's 2011, guys. We are 2022, we are in the same situation. Wow, why? Because we don't care. We know how to write the words, but we are very bad in action. So, okay, now we are in the energy crisis, food crisis, supply crisis, just because we didn't care. So, fortunately, we are creative enough. And, for example, cities, 35 years, I was designing cities. I was working with Prague, and we were working on patches, biopatches, and corridors which were connecting them to each other. Researchers find out now that 50 acres patches are actually good enough to reverse some damages we did to cities. Of course, the problem is where to find the space. So we had to bring back the biophilic approach. we know how to do vertical farming, but this is not the biophilic approach. This is actually also danger. So as Professor Marik was talking about AI and multi-agents, yeah, this is what this is the new tool we can use, but we have to be very careful. This is separate shell, separate from that other shell. So we are using digital intelligence. We know how to work with digital twins, and we are even starting to live in virtual world. And first time ever, we are able to use to actually deal with non-tangible asset, and then move actually the tangible asset in the real world. And this is something what will change the model it brings a new business model in our world, and it will change a lot our future. And we have to be careful, we have to be ready for a new dialogue with with the machines. And we are expecting a lot of autonomous vehicles, of course, and inclusion of artificial intelligence, but we have to find how to accept them and then explain to people this new type of friendship. And what is really I expect that sooner than autonomous cars, there will be those new species. They'll be running all around us. So there are very few ideas: vertical cities, vertical eco-cities, drone tower, new structures, fighting pollution with vertical towers like this. We have to solve migrant wave, which will be again and again and again. So this is, let's give them work. This is the picture of that. Sample of walking city, following resources, maybe coming with vertical solutions for cities, coming with a new nature into the cities, but vertically. We are designing floating cities, visible we are going to underwater. So, okay. I had an opportunity to design a city which is called Multown. It's not far away from the Prague. It's about 25 kilometers, and it was a concept. It is a concept of a resilient city of the future, and recently it serves as a lab for to work with different partners of ours, and we are actually designing all those subsystems in that concept. So enjoy this short video presentation. It's going to be last what I will tell you. You can see the center of that design was actually this building. It was 3 universities agreed to join this object and place their part of their university and share together space. And those students would share together their ideas. There was a monorail coming through that, not only for the people, but also for cargo. This is science museum design. I designed all of that, but it was such a virtual museum. It will be occupied by millennials, so I asked, and I wanted actually to bring a little bit of history inside the city too. So you can see there's a lot of new features, but there's a lot of those green areas and water areas connected together, designing with low impact development, landscaping is designed with low impact development methods. So water is actually kept inside the city and recycled. So you can see part of the design. Maybe you can even see that there is not too many PV, photovoltaic panels on the roofs, because I don't believe that it's actually a great idea, because the heat islands created on the top of the roof. So I placed them somewhere else. You can see on the right top side, you can see energy center, water cleaning center, waste cleaning center, and other facilities. It's very important was for us that solution of transportation and mobility issues, this combination of normal car and then autonomous cars, micromobility, walking type of mobility. So this is it. And the last things, I would like to invite you to November conference. It's called Vision 2050 Plus, and I would like to ask everybody who feels to be a leader, who wants to, be part of that vision, to contact me later, and then we will all invite you to Jofin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Yuval Hadas is next, Deputy Chair of the Management Department from Bar-Ilan University. He got his PhD in Technion, so another leading Israeli institution. He will talk about safety, evacuation scenarios, and also how tourists fell in this category and how much we take care of them or how much we forget about them, because with pandemic hopefully being over, the tourism is back. We have seen that Prague is packed. I'm quite delighted, but in case of emergency, are we truly including everyone?
Thank you very much. Nice being here. Presentation is okay. Good. Okay, so today indeed I will speak about tourist evacuation, and this is mainly part of joint Israeli-Japanese research related to ICT resilience. But before I start, I would like you all to invite you to coming CASPT conference, public transportation. It's a little bit off topic, but still it's a good opportunity to invite you all to Israel. If you have questions, you can approach me after the session. So the outline is, I think, quite obvious. Speak a little bit about resilience and emergencies, then evacuation in general, specifically about managed versus unmanaged evacuation, because we'd like within a city to use technologies in order to optimize the evacuation, to order people as fast as possible to reach their destination, and then to talk about tourist evacuation, which has specific properties that I will discuss later. So start with resilience and emergencies. I think that we have seen this is the part of the website of the conference. You see that it's also related to safe and resilient cities. And if we are looking a bit about resilience, it's about the ability to reduce the impact of disruptive events and the recovery time. So we would like one way to increase the capacity, to manage the reaction to capacity reduction, to absorb, to adapt, and then of course to recover. Specifically in transportation, we are talking about capacity, flow, and in evacuation, the evacuation time. So we can see emergency has characteristics, what is the nature, natural, man-made, terrorist attack, and so on, the source, magnitude, warning, which is important part, how long do we have time to notify the evacuees. Specifically speaking, we are considering a case in which the notification or the warning is sufficient. It's not about immediate, without notification evacuation, which has some panic attributes, so it's more of an orderly evacuation time. When we're talking about evacuation, we need to understand that it's not just, okay, go out, find yourself. First, we need to identify the incident. Sometimes it's quite complex. So we need technology also to identify earthquakes, if the floods might approaching, and so on. Then the decision makers need to decide whether or not to evacuate. Then we need to provide information to the population. We'll talk later that with tourists it might be a bit complex, language barriers and so on. Then we need to prepare the evacuation, execute, verify that we indeed arrive to the safe zones and so on. So we understand that it's not that simple process. So for that we need to plan. And for instance, if you look at a city that has hazards of a tsunami, like in the west coast of the US, we need to identify areas, safe areas, in which we like to have the population gathered in order to avoid the floods or the impact of the event. We need to prepare in advance evacuation routes, considering the number of evacuees, critical infrastructure such as bridges and so on. And you can see here some examples of signage in different languages, which once again, it's part of the barrier that we need to overcome. So, in terms of planning issues, we need to first understand that we are considering managed versus unmanaged evacuation, or in transportation language is the user equilibrium versus system optimum. And the idea is that the user equilibrium is the natural phenomena we all well aware of. So each evacuee or passengers or driver will take the shortest path available to him or her. So if we are at the supermarket, there are several queues, obviously we'll join the shortest queue. Now, in regular situation, it's okay. But once there is congestion, then this approach is poorly performed, what we call the price of anarchy. So we see congestion. On the other hand, managed or system optimum evacuation or movement throughout the network looks at the total cost or the minimum evacuation time. So each evacuee is directed to a specific route in order to minimize this evacuation time. However, it costs, because we need to manage every junction, every road section, so people will adhere to the instructions. This leads to compliance. Not all evacuees will comply with the instructions, so we need to see what to do with that. And of course, there is the tourist orientation, language barrier, culture, and so on, that we need to consider. And for that, we need also data. So just to provide you a bit of a managed versus unmanaged evacuation, you can see this is a small city, Conegliano, in the northern part of Italy. With colleagues from Padova University, we have analyzed what happened when we would like to manage or not manage the evacuation. And you can see that the 404 means that our total hours requires to evacuate when everyone decides his own route. On the other hand, on the bottom, what we call system optimum, it's the time required to evacuate is much lower because we manage all the links. However, it's impractical to manage over 1,000 links, whether are based on first responders, police, army, and so on, or even technology. However, we can identify small number of links, could be even 4, that once they are managed, we can still achieve a better through output or evacuation time than the user equilibrium. Now we would like to discuss tourist evacuation, which is the main topic. And we need to understand that, first of all, tourism is one of the largest growing industries, even though the COVID-19 put the brakes on, but we all believe that it will re-emerge. Yesterday at the meeting at the City Hall, discussed that Prague see tourism as a main industry. It means that we need to feel safe once we arrive anywhere. However, there is a cultural language gaps. For instance, you can see these two slides, pictures in Japanese and Hebrew. Most of you will not understand what are the instructions. My second visit to Japan, part of the project, we were in a city called Gifu. There was a small typhoon. We were outside, a little bit of wind, a rain, looks okay. However, our host told us that we must hurry to the hotel because in a matter of minutes, the wind will be over 100 kilometers per hour. So this is something that the local understand. However, what about tourists? So we need to see how we can have a more safe environment within a city for the tourists. For that, we like to use ICT, IoT devices to first understand where tourists move around the city, because there are parts that are not so important in that sense, and then to improve their evacuation process. For instance, we all know, and you see these two pictures that I printed from, or take a snapshot from Google Maps. This is Prague, and you can see that there are several places in which you see it's written busy area. How so? Google collects data about Wi-Fi and so on, so it can provide you about the location of people around the city. Also, if you have a favorite restaurant, we like to go there, or a museum, you can look at the level of congestion, of number of people, or popularity index. This data is collected via cell phones, mobile information, and so on. However, it's a privately owned, and we would like to have a way in order to do it in a more open way, so we can use the data to analyze and instruct the passengers. For that, there are several options. The bottom two are quite common. You can use cellular data in order to identify the location of the people around. However, it's usually privately owned, it's not very accurate, and it's not very easy to distinguish between tourists and domestic. We can also use GPS or GNSS. However, it required an app, it consumes a lot of energy, however, it's very accurate. For our research, we used both Wi-Fi packet sensors. You can see it on the middle of the picture, which listen and sniff or collect the signal sent from your mobile phones. So based on that, we can know the location of everyone. Bluetooth Low Energy can provide us with a better way of doing that. We have an app. The app can be customized so we know whether or not it's a tourist or not. And then we can collect data much more precisely, energy-wise. You can see here some information about the Wi-Fi data collected in Kyoto. And if we are talking about BLE, then what we are doing, we can install on bus stations, doors, other point of interest, these low-cost devices that operate on batteries for a long period of time. And then based on the signal strength, we can understand whether or not we are near the tag or far. So based on that, we can identify the location of the people around, and you can see that the colors represent, each different color is the different location. The precise location is based on the GPS data, which is not so accurate. So we can use a better way to collect the data. So the other problem is the navigation issue. You can see that once we are going around, if you're a tourist, we might not sure where to turn left or right. So there are some chances that we take the wrong turn. For that, we can use, obviously, the first responders. They will navigate or direct the tourist around. However, it's very costly. So you can use ICT devices as an alternative approach. We have used VR virtual reality goggles in order to identify the route selection of tourists. How we do so? We took 360-degree pictures around the city, intersections, and then we gave people the situation in a different city. For instance, this is Kyoto. So you can look around, and then you are asked to navigate to the safest zone. Now, each yellow arrow represents a direction you can take, and then you can move on to the next intersection. Based on that, we can understand how people behave, which way they are going. People mostly will go straight or to the narrowest, to widest road available. So we need to find a way to direct them to the correct way, safe evacuation. So we need to redesign evacuation based on the flow patterns. Second, we can identify critical nodes that need to be managed based on simulation and a virtual reality approach. Then we can retrofit or adjust the nodes and use also BLE tags to provide information to the evacuees. We can use, obviously, some lights or poles with different colors. However, what happened if there is no electricity, if there is no communication? So this approach is not resilient. On the other side, we can use our BLE tags to provide information. They are not expensive, and they can also provide the user with his or her own language as means of guidance. This is, by the way, Jerusalem, old city. You see, it's very difficult to navigate, so we need to provide some information for these tourists. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Next is Professor Miroslav Svítek from, again, Czech Institute of Informatics, Robotics, and Cybernetics. We will come to Prague, the heart of Europe, and we will see a truly test case of a test bed. So everything starts here in Prague. And again, please be mindful.
So, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank for a kind invitation. Topic of my presentation will be smart Evropská avenue. Every big city created something like a living laboratory. And I'm very happy that we created the interdisciplinary team from different specialization, from transportation, civil engineering, architecture, computer sciences, and visiting National Center of Competence in Cybernetics and Artificial Intelligence. As a byproduct, we choose Evropská Street as a possible living laboratory or digital test bed of city Prague. More information are on the website gatetoeurope.eu, but Evropská Avenue has a lot of advantages. There are many traffic modes, 3 stations of metro. There are also tram transport. There is a railway station, Prague-Veleslavín, and roundabout is very close to road tunnels of big tunnel, Blanka of the city Prague. And also our testbed includes airport of Václav Havel. As I mentioned, railway stations, so we did as a Faculty of Transportation Sciences a study for railway manager, infrastructure manager, that railway station is not only for railway system, but it is a smart neighborhood. And in Prague, Veleslavín, in this railway station, there is a plan, some mobility hub, because it is very close to to airport, and there is the station of metro and tram and so on. So it is a very interesting transport ecosystem, and a similar Prague airport would like to be a smart airport, and I am very happy that there was a successful negotiation between General Director of Prague Airport and Director of Operator ICT that is responsible for Smart Prague concept, that the data from Prague Airport can be used in a city data platform and vice versa, because Smart Airport could be integrated also into smart city concept. Within our set of project, we try to create something, we call it digital twin of Evropská street. Digital twin has a lot of layers. First is a data layer. So we have data from different sensors, cameras, data. Then we have floating car data, for example. In a second layer, we have a set of different modeling and simulation tools like Sumo and Vissim for traffic modeling, and there is also Palm for environmental modeling, and we have also software for energy consumption modeling. So we can model what-if scenarios, what will happen if this station, railway station or metro station will be closed and so on. But it is not enough to have a set of models. We go deeper, and on the next layer there is multi-agent technologies, that every strategy and every component of Smart Evropská Avenue is represented by software agent with intention and belief, and multi-agents can negotiate and can find in every time intervals the best solution for this situation. For example, if there will be flood or other disasters, so the agents can find the best solution. And the last part is visualization using some virtual and augmented reality. As a special part is the example of our approach, I choose the transport digital twin as an example, because we understand that transportation has a physical part. There are the infrastructure and the vehicles. There is energy, environmental part. There are some emission and externalities, and there are also information and control layer, how to control and how to manage whole traffic system. So you can see the simulation tools. It is Vissim, and it is way how municipality Prague 6 see the future of around about close to universities, that there are some changes, some measures, and we can react on every changes, and we can compare different traffic situation and different variants and select the best one. So this is the work done by Institute of Computer Science of Czech Academy, and they are modeling in this project, for example, the temperature of the city. You can see also roundabout and the change of temperature within the day. Other simulation is nanoparticles. They are very dangerous, and traffic is producer of the nanoparticles, and you can see that in rush hours or in congestion, there are a lot of nanoparticles in Davidská street and in around about. Within our research activities, we try to take all our simulation tools from transportation, from environment, from energy, and from smart buildings, and combine and find the synergies between different disciplines, because I understand smart city as a multidisciplinary topic, and mixture of this simulation and modeling tools can yield into modeling different situation, and with help of virtual reality we can see the different similarities. It is the example of city simulation software that you can see traffic modeling, environmental modeling, energy modeling, and some social economic modeling done by Faculty of Architecture, because they use all available statistical data from this urban area, and we define also some key performance indicators, and we compared variants before and during the COVID, and what will happen if in roundabout will be new building, secure building group, that is very big building, what will happen with transportation and with energy consumption, and other such situation could be modeled by our software, and the results can be presented through this smart, this virtual reality tools that you can use the different control panels, and you can see the result we have. This is buildings layer, and if the video will continue, there will be, for example, number of people estimation in different buildings. It is very good for traffic modeling and for multi-agent modeling of behavior of the people and so on. So it is the visualization result of our city simulation software. At the end of my presentation, I will shortly mention some project, because we are open for collaboration with our Israeli partners, and we try to use our software and our technology and try to implement it to different urban areas and use it for estimation of sustainability and resiliency of urban areas, and especially with respect to Green Deal, there is a ESG certification on assessment of different measures. I am very proud that we signed an agreement with Technical University Berlin, because in Berlin there is a similar digital testbed from Brandenburger Tor to Technical University Berlin, and they test similar software for autonomous vehicles, and within this collaboration we would like to test on Smart Evropská German software solution, and our solution can be tested also in Berlin. My colleague and our dean, Professor Přibel, will speak about our double degree in smart city, but within this double degree project with the University of Texas at El Paso, we created a common digital twin laboratory that uses a testbed, our Evropská street, and in the US there is the campus of UTEP. And our students can work in this laboratory, and also US students can work there. So it is the end of my presentation. Thank you for attention.
And thank you very much for managing the time. I got two questions, so very short answers. The first one, how do you bridge the language barrier in crisis situation? So I believe this is for Yuval. Yep. How do you manage the language barrier in crisis situation when people from different nations need to be evacuated?
So the idea is that we can use an app for tourists. Once they, let's say, arrive to the country, they can have an app that provides their information. And with this app that can connect to the tags, when there is an event, they can be distributed to each tourist with his own language. Moreover, if you are, let's say, a blind person, it could be in audible information. So this is the basic idea, yes.
Thank you very much. And now to Professor. How do you store and protect your data?
We have an agreement with Prague 6, because Prague 6 was a member of our consortium, and also in our project supported by Technology Agency of the Czech Republic, we have as a member of consortium TSK. It is the manager of traffic control and also for road maintenance of the city of Prague. So we have approach to this kinds of data, but our results are not public now, so we are working in R&D projects.
Thank you very much. Okay, the last presentation will be from Professor Tova Rosenblum, Head of Research Institute of Human Factors of Road Safety Management Department at Bar-Ilan University. It's about walking, and I'm very curious to hear that. When was the last time you walked for more than 15 minutes in an area you did not know? I did this yesterday when walking to meet Her Excellency and her guests. I took the train to Podbaba because of the traffic jam. It was not a nice walk for me as a woman. I realized how the situation was poorly lit, how the sidewalks were closed. On the other side, they were not existent. I was glad I was not walking with a stroller. And I felt unsafe. This being said, I am empowerment self-defense instructor. So very much looking forward to hearing what you are going to say.
I thank Professor Eyal Yaniv is not here, I see, for inviting me. It's okay. And first of all, I want to categorize myself. I'm a psychologist, and there is a branch of psychology called traffic psychology. Not many people have heard about it, but it still exists. We are thousands of researchers all over the world. We have journals of our own, conferences of our own, and the matter is to research, to study the road users' behavior, because all what we have heard today, and of course I respect every discipline, deals with computers, air pollution, emergency, physics, etc., but the consumer of all these are everybody, and we are supposed to walk. And Linda shared her experience as a walker, and I will, if you have a complimentary question, so you are invited to say it. Some words about smart cities. I will do it fast because this is what we are doing here. Smart cities refers to a modern approach of facilitating and improving urban life. It enables people to live in better place in terms of ecology, safety, and sustainability. Since the focus in smart cities is on vehicles and digital devices, sometimes there is a feeling of neglection of people who are walking in the cities. We know the benefits of walking for health, for ecology, as well for business. Maybe these are the most famous pedestrians all over the world. Despite these benefits, pedestrians are regarded as vulnerable road users, together with the motorcyclists and the bicyclists, etc., due to their fragility and slow movement relatively to vehicles, which make them at higher crash risk than other road users. Here some words about Israel. Israel has every year between 300 and 400 fatalities on roads. A little bit better than the Czech Republic. I've examined it, and it's very similar, but a little bit better. But the anomalia, I called it in Hebrew, of this picture is that a third to 40% out of these very sad statistics is of pedestrians. And this is very unusual for Western countries. We consider ourselves as a Western country. And normally, pedestrians' injuries or fatalities are between 10 to 15% out of all the fatalities on a road. And in Israel, it is a very, very serious problem. Maybe we deal here with smart cities, maybe because most of the population are living in cities, so the interaction between the vehicles and pedestrians are more massive, maybe. So many of my research deal with this problem. That's why I choose to focus on this subject. All over the world, almost quarter of all deaths on the world's roads is among pedestrians. So, you know, policy must adjust itself to the problem. As you said, Linda, we must provide the pedestrian a safe place to walk and to come back normally. I skip it because of the time. You can see here a lovely Padova, where I am now making my sabbatical. I came yesterday from Padova. And I know that there are many solutions, innovative solutions for increasing safety, convenience, etc. But I thought that before showing the solution, maybe it's better to concentrate on some needs of the pedestrians and the typical features of how they behave on the roads. And hopefully this information may help policymakers, public infrastructures, planners, etc. So the first category is age and gender. Here is my sweet grandchildren, a boy and a girl. They are twins also. Boys all over the world are involved in more accidents as pedestrians than girls. By the way, this is true about drivers as well. This is due to their tendency to expose to danger on the one hand, and on the other hand, to their lower perception of risk. When you put these two elements together, it's very, not so good. Boys and girls have different walking behaviors, even before the interaction with drivers. Boys play much more than girls on the sidewalk, by the vehicle lanes, while girls are more prone to walking side by side with parents, as usage and all revealed. Male in all ages tend to break the rules, not only on roads, but everywhere. For example, in Israel, we have out of 10 million persons, 14,000 prisoners, while somebody can guess how many women are sitting in prison, and we have equal population of males and females. Somebody can guess? 5%? Like lower. How many? Many? 200. Yes. Together with the security. With the security prisoners. So 14,000 versus 200. Let's say that it's so obvious that males are breaking the rules. And this exposes them much more to risks on road and everywhere. Okay, make it faster?
2 minutes.
So maybe I'll skip to the highlights because after these, let's say, so males are much more risky. Old age is also a very risky point. Pedestrian males against age and gender together are involved in more injuries than younger. Some words about socioeconomic status. There are 4 times more accidents in poor neighborhoods than in normal neighborhoods. So we can imagine that it belongs to education, to resources, and every other reason. A very important issue is the distractions. Look at yourself, what you are doing now. Probably you are holding these smartphones or computers, etc. The same on the roads. People are walking and crossing streets while texting, not only looking while texting, and this is one of the most serious problems. Now I get to highlights. I need 1 minute for this. While each line is a research without references this time. If it was my student, I will return it to him or her. And most of them, my teams. Who waits more to cross the street? Pedestrians that were in the past involved in road accidents, and pedestrians who are parents also, who wait less to cross the road. People who are in a hurry to get to work, people who are living near the cross. It's very interesting. If they live near, they allow themselves to not to wait, but to cross. People who cross the same street more than once a day. Again, not rational, but true. People under alcohol, of course. When 2 intersections are successive, one after the other, those who waited more at the first one will wait less on the second one. It means that we have a portion of patience, and if it's gone, it's gone. Maybe we also with the patient. This is my most popular paper. Got the most the best citations about people when they are crossing the street on red light, when they are standing alone and waiting, or with a group. So I don't have time to ask you, but what we revealed, and we repeated it many times, that usually it happens when only one person is standing alone. But after the first one is breaking the law, many others are breaking also, and another exception is that this rule is not true about young pedestrians, because there the social pressure is stronger than everything. Okay, I'm very near to the end. When a pedestrian arrives to crossing more slowly, it means he or she is walking slowly, they will wait more time to cross. The same about the driver. If driver comes to an intersection in high velocity, the chance that he or she will stop is very low. I skipped the summation, and I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, and we all should be more careful. So, before I thank the panelists for their 5 diverse interventions, we often thank to the institutions, but we forget to mention the people. So, first of all, let me thank Her Excellency Anna Azari and Lucie Friedrichová from the Israeli Embassy in Prague. And also let me thank my dear colleague Peter Kaiser from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for making this enormous effort. Now that we thank him and we applaud him, it's up to me to tell you this. We will go without a break because we have only 3 interventions and we want to save the time for lunch. So, Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We apologize for not being able to have the break, but we would be eating up our lunch. So I invite our distinguished 3 panelists to join me at the table so that we can start immediately with our last 3 presentations in the morning. I would like once again to thank the previous speakers at the previous session. I think it was highly interesting. So we start in a minute. So let us resume immediately as we agreed. Now it's my pleasure to open up the actually 3rd session and the last one in the morning. This is more focused on some smart solutions and visions. And we have 3 speakers to address us. The first is Professor Zev Zalewski. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Engineering of Bar Ilan University, and he would address us on some algorithms, I understand, for elaborating data, because to be honest, I'm not an expert in this regard. So with this apologies, Professor, you have the floor. And I kindly invite people to take their seats after they have grabbed their coffee and join us. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting me to speak about my research work. So I am the Dean of Engineering, but today I'm going to speak about my individual research as a researcher at Bar-Ilan University. And the technology I'm going to speak with you about is a technology which is not only a research topic, it's a technology that has been commercialized about 6 years ago to a startup company called Donisi Health. And it is a product that 1 year ago got an FDA approval, a medical FDA approval, and I'm going to explain all this. So in the opening session of today, the ambassador indicated the title of my talk as maybe not a title that is sufficiently clear for the wide audience. So I will explain, and I hope that after me finishing talking, you will know more about the topic, even more than me, maybe. So what I'm going to speak about is a biophotonic sensor that can sense many biomedical parameters simultaneously, and given that, give a wider and more complete medical picture to provide a more reliable medical diagnostic. And this type of sensor is an agnostic sensor to the environment of measurement, meaning that it will perform its sensing while the subject that is being sensed can move around freely, doesn't need to perform some kind of collaboration between his activity and the sensor itself. So it is agnostic to the environment in sense of doing the measurement. My lecture will be 1 hour. I will divide it into 4 parts. I will start with the introduction, speak about the research itself, and then show how it can be used for medical diagnostics. So, do you like science fiction? Who likes science fiction? All of you? Good. Do you know this movie, Star Trek? Good. It means you're above a certain age, but fine. It was a tricky question, I agree. You remember it as well? Good. Yeah, I recognize. So I have some news for you, and the news are that this is no longer a science fiction. What do I mean? Thank you for asking me. So in this Star Trek movie, you had a device, a miracle device called the tricorder. Using this device, the medical doctor of the ship, he was pointing the device towards various life forms, and he could, from a distance, in an agnostic manner, perform a medical diagnostics of the subject that the sensor was pointed towards. So this is what I'm doing. Now, why is it important? Why is it important to develop some kind of remote and agnostic biomedical sensor? Well, if you go back, let's say 5, 6, 7 years back, the concept was that you will develop a sensor that its operation principle is matched to the physics of the specific biomedical parameter you want to measure. Now, if you want to give a wide and reliable medical diagnostics, you don't need one biomedical parameter, you need many, 20, 30, 40. It was not really practical to put, and if it's a wearable, the meaning is that you put 20, 30, 40 sensors on top of the subject that he will need to carry those sensors with him in order to constantly, continuously perform the medical diagnostics. What I wanted to do, and this research had started about 16 years ago, what I wanted to do is to develop a single sensor that could sense many biomedical parameters simultaneously, continuously, in an agnostic way. And because it is sensing so many biomedical parameters, it could perform a reliable medical diagnostics and therefore could be incorporated in smart homes, smart cars, smart environments in general, and even in smart cities. Now, the question was, how can I sense one thing, one parameter, and yet extract from this many biomedical parameters simultaneously? So we were trying to think about the common denominator that is common almost to any biomedical effects occurring in biological tissues. And the common denominator is vibration. We're built out of molecules, we have pulsation of blood, we're moving because we're breathing, the heart is beating, it is also a movement. If we have the capability of sensing vibration, it could be the common denominator to many biological processes simultaneously. But you need to do the measurement in a very accurate way. You need to do it with a nanometric precision because the size of a molecule is say 1 nanometer. And if you have such a precision, then indeed this measurement could be the key factor for doing different types of sensing. So how do we do our measurement? We developed a special sensor that involves a laser light, a camera with special optics, and special image processing algorithm. The laser light illuminates the tissue of the subject that is being inspected, and the camera with its optics and algorithm analyzes the backscattered light. The backscattered light forms a random pattern which is called secondary Speckle pattern, and this random pattern is randomly changing in general. But due to our optics and the way we do the processing, we cause this pattern to change according to very specific rules. And by analyzing those rules, we can connect the changes, the spatial temporal changes of the pattern with the nano vibrations occurring in the inspected tissue. And as a result, we can perform a continuous diagnostics of many biomedical parameters because, as I said before, many biomedical parameters are related to nano vibrations. So by finding this common denominator, I thought that it is a very smart idea, an idea that I have invented, so it must be very smart, right? But then I discovered that like 70 years before me, there was a guy, I don't know if you heard about him, this guy, that said that everything in life is vibrations. And I fully agree with this guy, because indeed this is a common denominator for many physiological processes. And we have developed this sensor in various dimensions to be able to perform his processing, his sensing from different distances, short distances and large distances, and in various conditions to be incorporated in various environments, medical environments, home environment, and so on. And of course, the size of the sensor depends on the environment and the distance of measurement, but all of them work according to the same operation principle. You can see here some examples of the prototypes that we have developed. Some of them are low-end prototypes, some of them are high-end prototypes, some of them are incorporated as an add-on to a smartphone, while the measurement is performed by the smartphone. No. In any case, what you can see here is an example of measurement in which a subject is facing in front of one of the prototypes that we have developed, and you see some smoke between the sensor and the subject, right? So the smoke is not because the sensor is on fire. Intentionally, we put the smoke between the sensor and the subject because we perform the operation principle for the sensing is to detect the scattered light. We don't do imaging. So actually, this sensor could perform its biomedical sensing and diagnostics without seeing the subject, even if the medium between the subject and the sensor scatters light. Still, it can perform its sensing. Now, what kind of sensing does it perform? Thank you for asking me. This is a very good question. So we were able to show three types of sensing of three types of biomedical parameters. The first type is sensing of vital bioscience. By saying vital bioscience, I mean heart rate, not only the rate, but also the phonocardiogram, the beating, the sound of the heart, like what the doctor hears with a stethoscope. Respiration rate, not only the rate, the sound of the respiration, again, what you hear in a stethoscope. Heart rate variability, blood pressure, and so on. Those are vital bioscience, one category. The second category was the category of molecular sensing. We were able to sense concentration of various chemicals in the bloodstream in a non-invasive way. Chemicals like glucose, lactate, and other alcohol and other chemicals. I will speak about this because I have 1 hour. And the third type of parameters that we can sense is parameters related to hemodynamic processes. Everything related to flow of blood. And the focus of my research in this direction is remote sensing of brain activity, which is very interesting. But one of the things that we have discovered while using this sensor is not only that we can sense biomedical parameters and therefore use it for medical diagnostics, we can also authenticate people. Apparently, we can authenticate people in several ways, but one of the ways is that apparently the noise that our heart is making is different from subject to subject, not different like you have with a fingerprint, which is 1 the error is 1 out of every 100,000 people. In our case, we can identify a few hundreds, 1,000 people, let's say. But if you talk about applications of smart home, smart cars, and even some other restricted, family restricted smart applications, 1 out of 1,000 is enough. So in this specific example in this slide, you can see that the subject was facing the sensor. The sensor was not seeing the subject because there was a smoke that was scattering the laser light, and still it could perform its sensing. You can see it could read heartbeats of 70 times per minute, a respiration rate of 50 respirations per minute, but also, according to the charts that you see of the heartbeat, it could authenticate the person. You see his image on the right side of the screen, means that the algorithm could sense the sound of the heart and could find its match in the database that we had on the sensor. But moreover, we saw that even if we don't analyze the temporal information, but only the spatial information of the backscattered light, this random pattern, which is called the Speckle pattern, and we apply special artificial intelligence and deep learning algorithms, we could also authenticate people. Again, not 1 out of 100,000, but say 1 out of few hundreds. In this experiment, you see here 5 charts. Those are 5 different people in which we were able to identify them with very high accuracy in different conditions. Even if we added water, we did the measurement from the forehead. Even if they put water, they came in different days, we could identify them and separate between them and other people with very high precision of identification. So it could be used for authentication, not only for biomedical sensing. Now, we did in the last 16 years hundreds of various experiments in which we were able to develop or demonstrate the capability of using this technology to sense various biomedical parameters. For instance, those are different scenarios of smart cars, sleep apnea clinics, so sleep clinics, smart homes, offices, and so on, medical clinics in which we installed the sensor, and we were able to sense, here we sense respiration, and here we sense heartbeats, here we sense blood pressure, here we sense, so those are vital signs. Here we sense molecular concentration of lactate in bloodstream. Here we sense glucose in bloodstream. We sense alcohol in the bloodstream. This is the second group of molecular sensing, and as I told you, I do also remote sensing of hemodynamic activity, especially the activity of the brain. Here, for instance, in this experiment, we sensed brain activity. So this subject was sitting, the sensor is behind her. We were stimulating her visual cortex, which is located here. The sensor was looking there. When we stimulate regions in our brain, blood goes there. Blood is pulsating, so there are vibrations. This is hemodynamic activity, and we can sense it. You can see in the black 3 charts, 3 different subjects, no stimulation of the visual cortex, and then the stimulation begin, and you see in the middle of the chart, you see measurements of vibrations which are coming due to supply of blood to the visual cortex. So even sensing of brain activity. And then the next step was not only doing biomedical sensing, but incorporating, I need 2 minutes, incorporating it into various medical modalities to improve their performance. So we developed special medical device that senses abnormality in vocal cords. We incorporated it in a otolaryngology device to sense otitis, infection in the eardrum. You can, all those are clinical trials. I don't have time to explain. I was promised 1 hour, and now I need to finish after 15 minutes. It's not fair, but okay. We were able to detect bone fractures, not in X-ray, just by looking on the bone itself and sensing its responsivity to vibrations that we have stimulated. Intraocular pressure for glaucoma, early breast cancer detection, early melanoma detection. And what is interesting, and this will be the end of my presentation, is in the last 1 year, after this sensor got its FDA approval, we have conducted large-scale clinical trials in which this sensor was incorporated in several clinics and medical centers in Israel. We will try to perform detection of cardiopulmonary diseases. There are no other sensors that could detect it from a distance and in a continuous way. So we were able to, those are clinical trials. Here, for instance, we had clinical trials performed on 115 patients where we were able to detect, to perform a heart and respiratory rate monitoring. Here we detected our atrial fibrillation, again from a distance with the prototype that you see on the left side of the slide. Those are the clinical trials that were performed on 227 patients in one of the medical centers in Israel. And the last results were detection of pulmonary congestion. Again, no such sensors exist, but we were able to detect it with very high precision as sensitivity and specificity while performed on more than 200 cases. So to summarize my presentation, I showed you how speckles, those are the backscattered self-interference pattern of laser light scattered from a tissue, how they could be used for remote sensing to sense vital bioscience, science, molecular sensing, hemodynamic sensing, and use this for remote authentication of the subjects, not only for doing biomedical sensing of biomedical parameters. I showed you in the next level how to develop a prototype based on this sensing technology to perform biomedical detection and monitoring of bones fracture, melanoma, breast cancer, intraocular pressure, otitis, and other diseases. And the last level is the usage of this prototype in large-scale clinical trials in which we were able to detect diseases related to heart rate and respiration rate, AFib monitoring, and congestive heart failure. So thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. And now I invite our third speaker, actually, this session, if I may, Dr. Čečík. And I invite Mr. Kuzmic to prepare himself. In the meantime, before you start your presentation. Excuse me.
Okay. So I'm the second, not the third. Okay, hello everybody. Sorry?
There are some questions to be posed to the previous speaker, but due to time constraints, I would refer this question at the end altogether. And I would really kindly ask the last two speakers before the lunch to
have more than 50 minutes?
to have much less than 50 minutes, because otherwise there will be no lunch. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for inviting us. Actually, I have some connection to the Czech Republic. My ancestors came from Bohemia, and my maiden name is Manes. Maybe you know the artist Joseph Manes. So we have some remote connection, so I feel kind of like closing a circle. And second, it is very challenging to speak after Zev. I should have been first. Okay, so I'm going to speak from a little bit different perspective. I'm an environmental economist, and my presentation will relate to Professor Itamar Lenski's presentation earlier on the nature-based solution, and I will speak more about the economic side of nature-based solution, because if it's not economically efficient, then it's not going to work. So some background. So cities are fragile ecological system characterized by anthropogenic activities, including mobility, consumption, production, heating, and cooling, all of which aim to satisfy human needs, but also human wants. Recently, I'm not so sure what's the difference between needs and wants. Seems to be that they are becoming overlapped. And these anthropogenic activities pose the negative externalities, okay, mostly on the environment, with the most notorious externalities is climate change. However, while cities affect climate change, like 70% of greenhouse gas emissions come from cities, they are also affected by it. Two important examples. For example, you all know about the urban heat island. Heat island, I will not give more details, but they result with a temperature being almost always warmer than in the surrounding rural areas with severe environmental and health effect. Well, the absurd or the paradox is the traditional relief to the urban heat island is air condition, and air condition just create a vicious circle because it exacerbates the heat island phenomena. Second important impact is floods due to sea level rise, which damage life and property and cause water pollution. In Miami, for example, they have a nice name for these floods. They call it sunny day floods. Okay, because there is sun, the sun is rising, the birds are singing, and there are floods due to a high tide. And it was not an issue until the insurance company refused to pay the damages, so then it became an issue. And finally, according to Nature Communication, a recent publication, if no serious measure will be taken by 2050, all major coastal cities will be under risk of floods, at least 1 year. Some of them will be completely under the water. And the good news is that the good news about cities is that the concentration of people, activities, and building along with the web of networks. Okay, a city is actually a web of networks which have network externalities. Endow city with a key role in climate change, CC's climate change mitigation and adaptation. And today, cities are increasingly understood as part of the solution to the ecological crisis if they are managed to operate and development efficiently and smartly. So this understanding, with emphasis on smartly, gave rise to the development of the smart city concept. This is not an old concept, it is go like 30 years ago. And in the context of the smart city, nature-based solution, NBS here, are considered an important means to support the transition toward smart cities. So nature-based solution, you cannot see it, but nature-based solution is actually an umbrella concept describing the various measures of elements working with nature for climate change mitigation and adaptation, with the bonus of supporting biodiversity and ecosystem services. They ranges from anything starting with this bag hotel. I took it 2 days ago in London. I found it in some park, and I was very, so this is my rights. I mean, how do you say? Copyrights, yeah, I have copyrights on that. So it's starting from a bug palace and to this solution and to an artificial oyster reef along the Gulf, along the US Gulf. Okay, so nature-based solution can be very small and an enormous project. However, some changes could stand in the way of realizing the potential of a nature-based solution. To support the transition to smart cities, nature-based solutions should be designed, implemented, and evaluated smartly. And when I say smartly, I do not only refer to the use of sensors, IoT, machine learning, virtual reality, and all this stuff. When I said smartly, I said smartly beyond the use of technology. So the challenges that stand in the way of nature-based solution are three. First, nature is not always a panacea, okay? It's not a magic medicine for everything like most people tend to think. For example, when planning a tree planting project, one needs to consider, for example, you see there are many trees and trees on the left, and there are benefits. So you can see that some trees have absolutely no advantage in particulate matter removal. Some trees do not have any advantage in shading capacity. Some trees are very, very allergenic, etc. So it's not one size fit all. And also, there is a need to consider trade-offs and synergies, but especially trade-offs. Okay, here you can see that NBS, if you exceed, how long do I stay? 2 minutes? Okay, so I will skip a few slides. So if you use too much of a nature-based solution, then some of the benefits might decrease. A copy-paste implementation approach might result with maladaptation. A lot of cities just do copy-paste to what other city did, and this results with maladaptation, like dead green walls, which lead to public non-acceptance. And the third reason is that the nature-based solutions are still very expensive to establish and operate. Our cities are in no hurry to invest in them, which means that we need to consider all these aspects more carefully and to conduct cost-benefit analysis. And I used the Bar Ilan case study, which was presented by Professor Lansky, to make some cost-benefit analysis, and I have no time to go through the calculation, but we had 500 square meter of green walls in this project, and we have some assumptions, and the total cost, including maintenance, capital, and landfill cost is 450,000 euros. The environmental was challenging to estimate because most of the benefits do not have explicit market prices. So we need methods like hedonic prices, stated preference, travel costs, etc., to estimate the benefits. So I will just give you the bottom line. The benefits, well, I don't see the number here, but in total, the project is balanced. Okay, which is a little bit disappointing, but to some extent, if we consider the fact that we did not account for all the benefits like health impact, radiation reduction, biodiversity, and aesthetics, it might be that if we will take these benefits into consideration, the project will be on the profit side. And to some, the results indicate the importance of conducting cost-benefit analysis prior to committing into ambitious project. We also find high public acceptance in the project, with a small share of employees showing dissatisfaction and reluctance to pay. We still have to find out what are the impacts of COVID. These are not clear yet. And there is a need for deeper understanding of the entire range of benefits and a more accurate means to evaluate. So thank you for listening. This was, yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before I give the floor, or I will give the floor to the next speaker, but before he is ready to speak, I would possibly like to raise or transmit the questions to our speakers. First, to our first presenter, Professor Zalewski. I really ask for a very short reply. Could you say more about sensing the brain? And a related question, how large are the groups you address when testing the sensors and the analysis?
So those are two questions, right? Okay.
But 1 minute.
Yeah, so sensing brain activity is a very hot topic. The main problem with existing sensors is that they require wearing them on the head, like a helmet. We're doing it from a distance. There is still a lot of things to be done, but just in one sentence, we were recently able to show the capability of not only sensing that a specific cortex in the brain is stimulated, we also were able to detect with what it was stimulated. So say I show you a picture of something, I know that your visual cortex is stimulated, but I also know that you see a specific picture and not another picture. There is still a lot of work to be done. Those are only preliminary steps, but it looks scientifically very, very promising. And we speak here about the future, so this could be really the future. Now, in respect to what you said, the other part of the question, you said how practical those sensors could be in various applications. So besides sensing of brain activity, the main application that I see is, I mean, we heard lectures about car accidents with pedestrian and not pedestrians. If you install such a sensor in a car, it could, for instance, not allow the driver to turn the car on if he has a high alcohol level. It could make some sounds if the driver is tired, for instance, or is in some kind of stress. It could detect some kind of medical problem that is about to happen before it happens. So eventually it could be expressed in reducing amount of accidents. This is for smart car environment, but also for smart homes. It could identify people, allow them to better interface with their home environment. So I believe that photonic sensors, not only for brain activity sensing, but in general, will in the future be incorporated in homes, in cars, and part of smart cities as part of this evolution of this technology evolution as a super organism in which humans are interfacing with technology and technology is interfacing with humans. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if I may ask the other presenter, just 1 minute again, you know, you spoke a lot about making the cities greener. So there is a question, what about the historical centers of our cities that have been built? I understand it in this way. They were built some years ago, and there is not much room for making them green, not making them greener, the historical centers. For example, Prague is in the center not very green. How to make the historical centers of our cities, like Prague, green, if there are limits? If I can ask for a very short answer.
Okay, so because there is a lack of available this one is working? Yeah, so I think that the solution of green walls and green roofs is suitable, at least for part of the building, because it has no alternative use in terms of space. You just use the walls and the roofs, and we have some project in Malta, in the old city of Malta, that they are using green roofs and green wall in the old town of I forgot the name of the city. What is the name of the capital of Valletta? Valletta, in the city of Valletta, yes. So they used green walls and green roofs, and it works for them.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, the last speaker in the morning part of our he can introduce himself, and I would kindly ask to be for the last speaker, but to be.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me well. Thank you for being still here, despite me being the one between you and the lunch, which is not the perfect position, but I came later because I operated with the older version of the agenda, actually. And I came from another seminar on smart cities, which we did together with one of the front-running cities of the Czech Republic, city of Kladno, on sustainable urban mobility. So I'm glad that I can join you. I hope you will bring some food for thought to the lunch as well from this presentation. I promise to be quick. So First, I wanted to take the opportunity to speak to our Israeli guests, to our partners, to mention some of the technologies and highlight one principle of our work. I work at one of the institutes of the Czech Technical University, the University Centre for Energy Efficient Buildings. You saw the nice building behind before. And I think the key to the smart cities or to urban innovation, as we call it, is the multidisciplinarity. So this center is focusing on multidisciplinarity, and it's happy to be actually part of this wider ecosystem of innovating entities within Czech Republic. We have many colleagues here from the university and other institutions. So one of the technologies I would like to mention to our partners from Israel is the Saver technology. The expo in Dubai just passed, and you may have noticed that the innovation that won the first prize there came from the Czech Republic. Actually, it came also from the institute where I work. It's a special technology for solar air water earth extraction from the earth. From the air, and it can operate in very dry air. So, so this is actually how it looks from inside, and this technology is actually still ready to be transferred. So it's a novel principle that can operate in an environment between 10 and 20% of relative humidity. It's a sorption principle, not a condensation principle, so it's patented in the US, Israel, and Australia, and several other countries. It produces up to 100 liters per day. So here are some pictures from the first pilot installation in United Arab Emirates. And also the story goes on with miniaturization of this. And now to the, let's say, the continuum between individual technologies and the neighborhoods, as is the title of the presentation. I said a few words about our institute. It's 200 people who came from different faculties to work in one building. Actually, it was a social experiment as well. They didn't work together before, and they, in the end, somehow coped very nicely. After 7 years, I can say that this is really a economically sustainable research center, which is part of the university, of course. So here are some themes that we've been operating with regard to urban innovation in recent years, and I would highlight the continuum between building and positive energy district and district-level energy solutions, which we focus on mostly, together with construction. So coming from the technology, I mentioned this technology, which is the hybrid photovoltaic and thermic collectors, because in Israel we know there is one of the biggest producers of this technology, and this is a glazed solution that together produces more energy from one area than if we produce either electricity, either power or heat from 1 square meter. You can see the comparison with unglazed solutions and let's say split area between the two producing generation areas. We work on certification of buildings using BIM, making it automatized, making the standardization, let's say sustainability assessment of buildings easier based on BIM. What's next level is come back to the wood and timber structures. Here is one of the projects where it took actually 7 years to transfer know-how from the university to the practice. And it's a lightweight envelope based on wood, on timber, to maybe make a CO2 footprint of public buildings lighter, to completely refurbish, reclothe the building in timber. And we also, together with those technical expertise, employ a team of social scientists, urban planners, that they actually talk to people when public buildings are designed. So there are some methodologies done for Prague, how to deal with public schools. I believe there has been and there will be much word about IoT and measuring indoor comfort in buildings. So this is all comes as a pieces into a puzzle when we start working with higher level. And now we go through water in the city. There is a catalog for Czech municipalities, which is actually using the let's say, very old know-how being accumulated about what's actually efficient to keep the water within the cities, to be used and reused. And regarding energy, one piece in the puzzle is the increasing efficiency of the complex PV systems, because it's now not about nice to have or if I want a photovoltaics in Czech Republic, but how to mine the potential to have maximum of possible photovoltaics in the cities. So now it's about finding the niche reserves and potentials that we have. So we are talking about forecasting and making the forecasting more efficient, even with nowcasting for 30 minutes. And also getting the buildings ready for the flexibility for the market that is not yet here, but we know it's coming in 2-3 years, that the buildings need to be ready to trade the energy. So first pilots done together with family houses, apartment buildings, and so on. And then it all comes together when we look on the district scale, and therefore we're happy to hop on this initiative of the European Union to have positive energy districts. There are several platforms, and we are happy to have some Israeli partners there, also Nakitech, Tel Aviv University, who are working on this concept. And of course, it needs to use all the potential available, which needs to be measured, which needs to be matched to have the production and the consumption matched. Therefore, we can avoid, let's say, unnecessary storage capacity. And then it all comes to reality when you find a city which is willing to work with you to plan such a district and to implement it. So this is a biggest challenge that we are working on right now, because the governance issues are in the end, those that are either enabling or actually hampering this kind of innovation. So we are learning as we go with the city of Kladno, with other cities, with city of Prague and other partners to build such positive energy districts. You can follow some developments on about those horizon projects like ARF or Sparks, or the new ones combining the let's say, energy sustainable neighborhoods with New European Bauhaus initiative. Those are Kraft and Nepstar, where we work also with partners from Nordics. So thank you. I'll be happy to discuss you during or after lunch or in the afternoon block. I will stay here until the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a lot of food for thought before we actually move on to real food that is awaiting us upstairs. I will come back to that. But before we start, there is a question for you, Mr. Kuzmic. The famous saver you referred to that was exhibited with such a great success at the last expo, I believe. There is a question: how do you intend to develop further the technology you utilize? If you can get to in a minute to respond.
Thank you. Very quickly, we need to get it into real use, actually. So far, it's several prototypes running in the Middle East, and we are working on miniaturization, as I mentioned. So those are the immediate next steps. I'm happy to discuss more because there are big opportunities in recultivation, security field, of course. Army use is obvious, but there are definitely more towards saver.
So, dear colleagues, this concludes the proceedings of the morning part of our program. I would like to say that we have had a number of really wonderful and very interesting presentations, and I ask you to give a big round of applause to our presenters. It was really something. And on technical or housekeeping, there is a lunch awaiting, a well-deserved one, I would say, awaiting you upstairs on the second floor. The access is quite easy. You will go along the corridor until the end and then climb the steps up. Up there you will see the garden and the premises where the lunch is being served. So you are cordially welcome to the lunch, and please be reminded that we start sharply, but actually in 50 minutes. But before we do so, there is a possibility for all of you to actually have the opportunity to learn something about the results of our previous gatherings, namely about the newly established Institute of Czech-Israeli Collaboration in some technologies and partnerships. It will be presented by Assistant Professor Burian and Dr. Tomáš Jelínek. So you are cordially invited before we start and we resume. I believe it's 20 minutes will be the time of the presentation, which means 5 minutes before quarter or 2:10. Is that correct, Tomáš? After the lunch, you are invited, before we start the official program, over here to listen to the presentation of one of the common Czech-Israeli projects. But I should not hold you from the lunch anymore, so once again, thank you very much. You are cordially invited upstairs.